Hello everyone and welcome to your guide to popular builds and Heroes of the Storm. My name is Seren Death and today we'll be checking out Azmodan's Globe of Annihilation or Dunk build. But before we get into any of that, a quick disclaimer. These guides are not written in stone. They are here to point you in the right direction, but ultimately they are a tool to help you learn the hero on your own. Now we've gotten through that, let's take a look at Azmodan. He is a ranged specialist from the Diablo universe, and when he isn't blurting out his plans in long-winded demonic holograms, he is showing the NBA what they are missing out on by dunking on his enemies so hard they explode with frustration. His kit allows him to globally put pressure on the lanes while pushing his and dropping bombs on his enemies from afar. Before we get into his talent build, let's take a look at his skills. His trait is called General of Hell. This is a 30-second cooldown that summons a demon lieutenant at an allied mercenary, minion, or summon. The lieutenant will then march with a target, granting 15% increased damage and 15% max health to all friendly mercenaries, minions, and summons. This ability has global range and it will last until it is killed. This ability can put a lot of pressure on the enemy's lanes by boosting your minions, allowing them to push down the enemy's waves and tank more tower shots. His Q is called Globe of Annihilation. This is a 10-second cooldown, long-range AoE skill shot that does heavy damage to enemies on impact. This ability does a fairly decent amount of damage, and the extremely long range allows you to finish enemies off even after they disengage from a fight. But it does have a cast time and travel time, so you'll need to compensate for those when looking at hitting enemies. Azmodan's W is called Summon Demon Warrior. This is a 10-second cooldown, skill shot-like ability that summons a demon warrior that marches towards a point. The warrior will deal light damage and lasts 10 seconds. The warrior, like a lot of other summoned creatures, will do an attack move action, and if they don't find anything to fight, will make their way to the closest lane. This ability doesn't do a lot of damage, but the warriors will help you push your lane and they can soak up tower shots for you. His E is called All Shall Burn. This is a 6-second cooldown that channels a beam on the target. The beam does increasing damage the longer it is channeled, and it does 25% more damage to structures. This ability can do a pretty substantial amount of damage if you're able to sit on a target. However, it does have two drawbacks. One, you can't move while channeling it, which means you need to keep an eye on the minimap for enemies trying to flank you, and you can't chase them if they leave during a team fight. And two, the ability costs you mana per second, so you can run into mana problems if you're constantly channeling it. Now that we've covered his basic abilities, let's take a quick look at his heroics. His first heroic is called Demonic Invasion. This is a 100-second cooldown that summons in a host of demonic grunts that drop down on enemies. Each impact will deal light damage, and then the grunts will move to attack the closest enemy, dealing light damage which is doubled against non-heroic targets. This is a very powerful pushing tool that will allow you to shove your lane and take structures with ease, and can help you in team fights. But without having direct control over the grunts, it may not do the damage to the right enemy. His second heroic is called Black Pool. This is a 20-second cooldown that creates a pool that empowers Azmodan, his demons, and allied minions, increasing their attack and ability damage by 75%. The pool lasts for 5 seconds. This is a very powerful buff for Azmodan that can make his damage truly frightening. The ability also holds 2 charges that can be placed under Azmodan or under his minions if you really want to boost their damage. Just a quick note. You can auto-place the pool underneath Azmodan by holding the Alt key when you activate the ability. Now you've covered his base abilities, let's get into his talents. At level 1, you're going to go with Taste for Blood. This is a quest talent that increases the damage of Globe of Annihilation by 2 every time an enemy dies within 1.5 seconds of being hit by Globe of Annihilation. The ability can only stack to 500, but that is a massive amount of damage and will truly make you the Dunk Master, crushing enemies with your globes. This talent does require you to spend nearly all of the early game getting stacks, but with a little bit of help from your team, toward the mid and late game, you will really bring the pain. At level 4, you're going to go with Army of Hell. This increases the damage of your demon warriors by 20% and reduces their mana cost by 20. This will help you bully the enemy a bit more in lane, and it synergizes well with a later talent. At level 7, you're going to take Infernal Globe. This reduces the cast time of your Globe of Annihilation and increases its speed by 40%, which means it will be slightly easier to get those dunks off, and you can land them much easier on enemies that are further away. If that wasn't enough, this talent also does light damage over 4 seconds to enemies hit by Globe of Annihilation. For Azmodan's heroic, you're going to go with Black Pool. While this heroic may not be a necessity for the dunk build, it will help you stack Taste for Blood on your own, and it will help you boost the damage of your already devastating globes, allowing you to completely annihilate the enemy when you hit them with one. At level 13, you have a choice to make. If you're looking at making your globes more efficient, then you will go with Hedonism. This reduces the mana cost of Globe of Annihilation by 30. Simply put, your spells are expensive, and any way that you can make them more mana efficient will allow you to poke more often and still have globes to finish off enemies when they really count. However, if you really want to get more use out of All Shall Burn, then you will go with March of Sin. Now you can move at 75% speed while channeling All Shall Burn. This will help you out if the enemy is diving on you, allowing you to defend yourself a bit better while moving toward the safety of your team or one of your structures. Just remember that All Shall Burn will still quickly eat through your mana, so keep an eye on it. At level 16, you're going to go with Battleborn. Now, if Globe of Annihilation hits an enemy, a Demon Warrior will be summoned at the impact point. This will allow you to put even more pressure on the map, and if your globe didn't finish them off, the warrior and the dot should be enough to seal their fate. At level 20, you have another choice to make. This choice mostly comes down to personal preference, but also has a little to do with how the enemy team is reacting to you. If your team is screening the enemy team, preventing them from diving onto you, or they're having a hard time dealing enough damage to you, then 5th Circle is what you will take. This enhances Black Pool, making your basic attack and abilities slow enemies' attack and movement speed by 40% for 3 seconds. This not only adds some utility to all of your abilities while under the effect of Black Pool by slowing the enemy's movement speed, but now if they do get close, they will find it even harder to deal enough damage to you to take you down. However, if the enemy is quickly pushing in past your line and you find yourself having a hard time escaping, then you may want to go with Bolt of the Storm. This is a 70-second cooldown that allows you to teleport to a nearby location. This is an all-around solid escape and can get you out of sticky situations. Azmodan's Dunk build is a very strong build that can have strong lane presence with powerful wave clear and global pressure with General of Hell. He can dish out massive damage with good Taste for Blood stacks, and he has a very large health pool. However, he does require help getting Taste for Blood stacks in the early game, because without those stacks, his damage isn't that great. Since he'll be focusing on getting stacks, he will have very limited team presence in the early game, and he has no escape until 20. Alright, now we've gone over all of that, let's go over some quick tips for Azmodan. For you, much of the game revolves around getting stacks for Taste of Blood, so most of these tips are going to center around that. If your team is helping you get stacks, then rotate between at least 2 lanes. You won't miss any experience, and you'll be able to stack your Taste for Blood very quickly, which means you'll be able to show up to team fights much earlier. If you aren't level 10 yet, and your team is not helping you stack, then in lane, make sure you're attacking the ranged minions in the back first, while your minions fight the melee minions in the front. This will allow you to get their health mostly even, so you can take out more of them with one globe. During the early game, your focus should be on getting as many stacks as you can. If your team needs help, then help them as much as you can, but always be trying to kill minions with your Globe of Annihilation. On that note, never stop trying to get stacks for your globe, unless you're at the 500 cap. If there is some downtime and your team needs to clear a wave, make sure they know to wait for you so you can get the stacks. The more stacks you have, the more devastating your Globe of Annihilation will be when you hit the enemy team with it. And when you do finally start showing up to help your team secure objectives or fight in team fights, make sure you're putting your General of Hell in a lane where the enemy isn't. This will allow you to constantly put pressure on the enemy and could even lead to structures falling. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this guide helpful. If you have any variations or tips for this build, feel free to share them in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, I will catch you all later.